Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh again. Salam sejahtera and a very good morning to Professor Engineer Dr. Hazirul bin Abdul Karim, Deputy Dean, Student Experience and Alumni, Faculty of Engineering, Multimedia University, Dr. Tan Wei Hao, Deputy Dean, Academic and International Relations, Faculty of Engineering, Multimedia University, our panel of distinguished speakers, Mr. Tan Han Wei, Chief Technology Officer, Sustainable Harvest Sendirian Berhad, Associate Professor, Dr. Sam Suzana Abdul Aziz, Fakulti Kejuruteraan, Universiti Putra Malaysia, Forum Moderator, Dr. Fu Yilu, Senior Lecturer, Faculty of Engineering, Multimedia University, Chairman of the Industrial Linkage Committee, Dr. Siti Azlida binti Ibrahim at Ghazali, Co-Organizers, IEM Electrical Engineering Technical Division, IEM MMU Student Section, and IEEE MMU Student Branch, friends from the industry, fellow academicians and colleagues, students, and ladies and gentlemen viewing us online today. On behalf of the Industrial Linkage Committee, I am honored to welcome you to the FOE Industry Forum 2022, which carries the theme Sustainable Engineering, Managing Food Security Challenges in Malaysia. The FOE Industry Forum has been conducted annually since 2012, with themes ranging from management, IR 4.0, artificial intelligence, sustainability, cybersecurity, and green technology. This year's theme was selected in view of the increased awareness on the issue of global food security. Food prices globally are soaring due to the recent global issues such as the disruption in the supply chain and political unrest. Therefore, it is crucial for us to understand the mechanisms in place by relevant Malaysian experts to ensure food security in the local front. Without further ado, I would like to invite the Deputy Dean of Student Experience and Alumni from Faculty of Engineering, Multimedia University, Prof. Engineer Dr. Hazirul bin Abdul Karim, to say a few words and to officially launch the forum. Please welcome Prof. Engineer Dr. Hazirul.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi taala wabarakatuh. A very good morning to the panel of distinguished speakers, Mr. Tan Han Wei and Associate Professor Dr. Sham Suzana, Forum Moderator Dr. Fu, Organizing Chairman Dr. Siti Azlida, ladies and gentlemen, and dear students. The pandemic has triggered global disruption to the supply chain and has affected the global food supply system. Furthermore, developments on the global political area has also triggered the hike in food prices. Government all over the world are placing a high priority on the implementation and R&D of food security using IoT and machine learning. It gives me great honor to welcome the experts in the smart and precision farming here today who are willing to share the experience and expert knowledge with our students. Thank you for making your time despite your extremely busy schedule to share your knowledge with our students and our audience here today. I also take the opportunity to thank the organizing committee of the forum The FOE Industrial Linkage Committee and their collaborators, IEM and IEEE student section, they have worked very hard every year to enable various team discussion ranging from management, AI, green technology, IoT, and other recent engineering topics using this foreign platform. This is to ensure our students are exposed to recent engineering technology and also managing employer expectations. The knowledge gained by students can be used to better prepare themselves for the industry, expectations, and broaden their research horizons. The faculty also have met valuable networking from the past forum experts who have gone on to become our collaborators and co-researchers. This year, the theme is food security. This is well chosen indeed, as there is a growing need to leverage engineering solutions for monitoring of food levels in the country, and using technology to improve yield and control food quality. So having said that, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great honor to officially launch the FOE Industry Forum 2022. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Engineer Dr. Hazirul, for launching the FOE Industry Forum 2022. Ladies and gentlemen, we are very privileged today to have with us two industry experts who will share their experiences on food security. Firstly, Mr. Tan Han Wei is an ex-product manager of Itilzi, a subsidiary of Green Packet Berhad, who has successfully created an IoT sensor hub with his team for various applications such as smart farming, smart city, and others. They have collaborated with strategic partners such as Alibaba Cloud and Intel and Tanahmo. He then joined as an IoT technical specialist in MIE Industrial Sendirian Berhad, serving MIE Agro Farm, a subsidiary of MIE Industrial. In 2022, Hanwei joined his partners to co-found Sustainable Harvest Sendirian Berhad, which specializes in smart precision farming and durian yield enhancement. Our second panelist, Dr. Sam Susanna, received her PhD and MSc degree in agricultural engineering from Iowa State University, USA in 2008 and 2005. She headed the Department of Biological and Agricultural Engineering, University Putra, Malaysia, from 2013 until 2016. She was also appointed as the head of Smart Farming Technology Research Center, UPM, and served as the Deputy Dean of Postgraduate Studies at Faculty of Engineering, UPM, from 2019 to 2021. Dr. Sam Susanna received the Young Female Leader Professional Development Award from IEEE WICAS in 2015 and was the first runner-up for Asian US Science Prize for Women in Precision Agriculture Research in 2018. Currently, she is the coordinator for Putra Makers Space UPM and the 2022 IEEE CAS Makers Outreach Program. Her current research focuses on instrumentations and artificial intelligence for agri-food systems. Dr. Fu Yilu received the Bachelor of Engineering Honours degree in Electrical Engineering from the University of Malaya, Malaysia in 1998, the Masters of Engineering Science degree from Multimedia University, Malaysia in 2003, and PhD from Tokyo Institute of Technology in 2016. He is a senior lecturer in Faculty of Engineering, Multimedia University, and the internship coordinator of the Faculty of Engineering, Multimedia University. His research interests include physical layer security, cognitive radio, spectrum sensing, and TV white space. I would now like to invite the panelists and the forum moderator on stage to begin the forum.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to Dr. Katrina and the organizer for inviting me to moderate this industry forum. So it's our honor here today to have our two panelists here with us, Dr. Sam Susanna from UPM and Mr. Tan Hanwei. Unfortunately, the third speaker, which is Mr. Muhammad Taufiq from MSD Innovations and Sendirian Berhad. Unfortunately, he cannot join us this morning because of some emergency. So nevertheless, we have two experts here with us. So the title of today's forum is Sustainable Engineering, Managing Food Security Challenges in Malaysia. So before inviting the panelists to share their views on this topic, I would like to ask everyone here a simple question. What's the price of the chicken rice now? Okay. As compared to 6 months ago, how much it has changed, the price? Do you still get a 5 ringgit chicken rice? If you get it, let me know and then I go buy it now. So I'm sure the answer is no. Food is something that affects every single person, you and me, whoever who is sitting here. So everyone feels the pain when the food price hikes up. Pricey food affects the public's spending power on food. But affordability is just one aspect of the food security. There are other aspects, such as availability of the food, safety and quality of the food. What have made food security a grave concern nowadays? COVID-19 followed by the lockdowns is certainly one of the reasons. The pandemic has certainly disrupted the food supply chain. The Russian-Ukrainian war is certainly another main reason that has caused a shortage of food supply all over the world. The third reason is a climate change, right? Floods in food-producing countries such as Pakistan and Thailand definitely will have a devastating effect on food security. On the other hand, from the perspective of sustainable engineering, how do we actually sustain food availability, affordability, safety, and quality? These are the questions that we wish to answer today. So now let me begin this forum by asking a simple question. What are the sustainable food processing and engineering processes? All right, Mr. Tan, perhaps based on your experience, maybe you can share your views on this.
Good morning everyone. Thanks MMU for the invitations. So to us, I'm here to actually to share my experience as in agriculture technologies kind of companies, right? And from the overall, I'm from an engineering background, okay? So we design products, we design IoTs kind of sensors to actually to make it as in a very very cost-effective way of compares to a few years back. Products are like for sensing for the soil, that would be very costly, right? That is the first thing first. And we see the futures of these agriculture technologies. So that's why we keep on inventing like a product that which is able to be every farmers that able to actually can afford for the whole things, right? It's not necessary to be maybe an imports products or the cost is high until that they can't even think about it, right? For the futures, for their farms, all right? So for us, we are looking at the pain point itself, right? For the whole industries, for examples like maybe in a certain farms that they are actually having a challenge that which is inconsistent the yields. So that's why we design product as in a very cost-effective way to make it like everyone's also able to enjoy the technologies. That is the aims from my point of view. Right.
Thank you, Mr. Tan. How about Dr. Samsuzana?
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Fu, for inviting me. I'm very honored to be here with all of you, MMU. This is basically my first time coming to MMU, but I've met some of you here. I've met Mrs. Tan before. I've met Dr. Tan before in UPM, and Dr. Hazril has been a friend of of mine as well, so it's not very difficult to get acquainted here. So basically, I'm an academician and an associate professor at the University Putra Malaysia. My first degree was electrical telecommunication. So basically, I was an electrical engineer by training, but then I furthered my studies in agricultural engineering, specifically focused on engineering solution for agricultural industry. So I've done my master's and PhD in the United States of America, where they have a very advanced agricultural engineering industries and also program, which we can use for our local, applications. So my field in this area is more to fill in, to narrow down the skill gap, especially among the locals in Malaysia, to help in producing more sustainable agricultural production. So, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Okay, just now both of you mentioned about using technologies such as IoT as a cost-effective solution, right? And Dr. Sam Susanna mentioning about how to reduce the skill gap, right? So how do you see, what kind of a state-of-the-art technology that is being implemented here in Malaysia in the context of agriculture? What do you think about it, Mr. Tan?
Sure. In sustainable hours, we have actually two pillars. Okay, one is building up the so-called vertical farming. Another one which is more towards the plantations for the durian. Right. How technologies can be applied here is that first thing first, we're going to do the benchmarking for the whole crop cycles. All right. It's not to say that we just put in the sensors and get some data, then it's considered job done, right? As a smart farming provider, it should be throughout the journey, right? From the hardware, from the sensors, until to the cloud and do the analysis, how we can apply the technologies that is, I would say, is the whole journey. So just for example, for the durian farming, right? We have a different sets of data, like from the pre-harvest, harvest until the post-harvest. So that is very important. Is that when we are planting in the sensors, we have our own create the SOP. For smart farming, it has been very popular in other countries, such as US, such as European countries, or even Israel. So these are the countries that it should be our we should actually learn from them, right? In Malaysia, yeah, that is I think we can see actually start. It means begin in all these journeys, right? People is actually start asking for technologies, how this thing can improve their yields, improve their consistency. So, yeah, I would say technologies, it can be get the benchmark, get the whole cycles of data, then later on we can put inside the so-called the fertilizations systems, right? Then it can do all the fertilizations process automatically. This is right. Okay, what about Sam Sujana?
Yeah, about the technology revolution in agriculture, I like to go back to the, the revolution of the industry itself. It started earlier in 1950s, where in agriculture we mostly depending on the, tools and, manual instruments to conduct agricultural activities. And then it starts to bloom as the industry starts to change from the, from the manual to the manufacturing industry. As the manufacturing industry bloom, then agricultural also start to, keep up with the technology, such as they started to use tractors, as the machinery technology being available. And then when electronics industries start to come up in 1990s, then we start to have computers, then we start to have sensors, and sensors start to being used in agriculture as well. Not in Malaysia yet at that time, but in Western countries, this has been, widely implemented in their machines. Like even when I did my PhD in the United States, which is like 14 years ago, they already have the tractor moving, without drivers by themselves, because they have the computer and the controller on the tractors to move in the field. So in Western countries, it has been adopted very well, but Malaysia is highly dependent on labor yet, still, yeah. For example, we have oil palm industries, which is our main economic crop in Malaysia, where we highly depending on labor. So we manually cut the fronds and harvest the fruits, as well as in the paddy. We're talking about food security, so rice is the main staple food in Malaysia. So back then, we still use tractor very minimally, just to till the soil, and some part of the farm using it for planting and harvesting. But nowadays, as the machineries and as the industries become more advanced, luckily in Malaysia we are already fully mechanized in rice. So we use totally the whole cycle activities in the paddy plantation are all mechanized. And even nowadays, people are going towards the data-driven technology, just like what Mr. Tan has mentioned. We rely on a sensing mechanism to collect data and to assist us in conducting the activities. So I would like to give an example. For example, in paddy, they have started using the drone to do the spraying of the fertilizers, as well as spraying the pesticide inside the farm. Before they have to manually carry the haversack and spray it themselves manually, but now as the new generations is coming in, and they are more tech savvy with drone control and everything. So they have started to use drone to monitor and also apply pesticide and fertilizer in the farm. So that is the trend that I've seen in Malaysia. Apart from using IoT for irrigation, controlling the water requirement in the farm, like in the urban agriculture, or in mostly fertigation type of system. Yep. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tan and Dr. Samsudana, for sharing your views. Just now, Mr. Tan mentioned about data analysis, and Dr. Samsudana also mentioned about data-driven technology. So I would like to ask first Mr. Tan, then followed by Dr. Samsudana. What do you think of the role played by AI in this context?
Yes, Dr. Fu, thank you. For AI, we are actually using this for the predictions, right? first thing first, what we are predicting is that we can actually use it to predict the weather, right? Secondly, which is we can predict on the so-called the soil moisture, right? Even nowadays, they are using the satellite images to actually translate into some meaningful data, right? Satellites images that available, I mean the services right now, some service provider, they are actually capturing the images maybe every 2 days, one set of data. Then they get all this data, translate into even a pH value, also they actually manage to get that, right? Not only on the leaf index, the NDVI, looking at the health status of the trees, right? Whether it's turning into different colors or different reflections to the satellite, right? This we can see that this is one of the technologies that they actually making into the standard industrial usage of these AI technologies by using the images, right? So this is the first thing first, right? And we actually come along with like even let's say if we talk about durian, right? This AI, how can this AI can be applied, which is we learn the whole journeys, the whole process, how to plant a good Musang King, right? Based on the true whole sets of data, but all this is not just for Musang King, but it can be other crops as well, right? Throughout the cycles, how to actually to practice to have a good durian path, right? A yellowish, a nice, very smells good durian, right? So based on here, we collect all these sets of data, then we make it into the AI model, a precise plantings models, right? Whenever someone would like to plant, let's say durians, right? They have a whole set of formulas that how to actually to lead them is more like a farming GPS, right? When should you irrigate? When should be fertilizations? How much of fertilizations? Because different areas they have a different practice, right? So before the technologies, the AI or the IoTs come into the pictures, there are a lot of industrial experts, right? Maybe some gurus will teach you how to do the irrigations, how much of water, what is the frequencies of to irrigate, right? So all these are based on experience. When come into a technologies, you don't have to be rely on gurus that much, because you are the one who actually to control your farm. You are actually handling it. You actually got the data to actually to tell you when is the best times to do the irrigations, right? Right? Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. When we're talking about AI, artificial intelligence, we need to know what is AI. Is there anybody know what is AI? So if you are aware, artificial intelligence is actually the intelligence that human created for the machines to react or respond just like what human will do, right? So it's an artificial intelligence that we created. It's basically a programming language. You program the machines or the controller to act just like what human will act, right? So so for us to be able to develop an AI, we need a data. We need a huge set of data so that the machine can learn from the data through the pattern. So the main thing in AI, when we're trying to use it in agriculture, I always highlight this to my students, that we need to have a good data. You need to have a meaningful data. So to make a meaningful data, you need to be able to understand what are the things that you are trying to solve. For example, if you are trying to use AI in agriculture, you need to understand the agricultural practices. Yeah, for example, like Mr. San has mentioned, you are trying to manipulate or control the water and try to optimize the utilization of water. So you need to understand what's the sciences behind the interaction between the water and the soil, the plants, and what's behind it. So AI can be done in agriculture, of course, and it has been adopted very well. But for efficient and meaningful applications, we need to have to understand the process behind what we are trying to create. So my opinion is that it is very important for development, for us to work together, like engineers. You created AI, so engineers have to work together with the horticulturalists or agriculturalists or the farmers who has an experience and translate their knowledge into your AI.
Exactly.
Yeah. We need to have that transitions. I've teach integrated design project in my universities, and most of us, I'm teaching engineers, so they are developing very creative solutions, for everything. Okay? But for us to be able to make this solution that we created, engineers, when you created a solutions, you have to make sure that your solution being able to be adopted by the users. Sorry, do I have more? I'm going to tell you a story that I have a friend who's teaching design thinking class. Okay, so you are an engineer, you have to design things. So there is who know design thinking principle. So he's teaching design thinking, and he told a story that he has a friend who is an engineer, went to India to help the woman in India to make their job easier, because this woman has to walk 10 kilometers away from the house every day to do the job, whatever the job it is. But it has to go out from the house every morning, early in the morning, walk 10 kilometers, probably take like 1.5 hours walking, and then come back in the evening, 1.5 hours walking 10 kilometers. It's a tough job. So this engineer has created a machines, design a machines and give to the woman, hey, and say to the woman, you don't have to go to your work 10 kilometers anymore, you can do the job at home. This is the machine that you can use. Hoping that the woman will be happy. Suddenly, the woman doesn't look happy. Why? Because she likes to walk 10 kilometers every day to the place where she work every day, because that's the only time she being away from the house, from the home. So even you have created a very good design to make it workable for the woman, but if it's not preferable to the user, then your design would just be useless. So that's what I know. All of us engineers can create a lot of things, but it's also important for us to penetrate the culture, socials, and also practices in the real situations.
Yeah, I would like to add in a bit. Right, like what Professor Samsudana actually mentions, that which is very true. Work with the industry expert, right? Electronics, maybe engineers, we just can't go into agriculture technologies alone, right? Because for us to create, it's not something that difficult in terms of technologies, right? But to solve the pain point, to overcome their challenges, that's the main things to be addressed. Yeah, it's very true. right? The ones that like for the agriculture, like vertical farmings, I work with a different expert. Before this, when I was in A2Z, I worked with a chili expert, right? For the durian, I work with people that able to plant a 3 kgs kind of durians, which is able to fruiting in 3 years, which is a standard practice, which is 5 years. You see. So they have all this in mind, right? What do they feel? What they need to do, right? Just a quick sharings on this, right? Before this, the sensors being applied, they are not too sure when should they irrigate, even there's a rain. So they just listen to the gurus, right? They just based on their maybe a farm experience to actually to irrigate that, right? But then when the thing is go into a commercializations, when they want to grow bigger, a corporate levels that need to be kind of mindsets need to be in place, right? When they have a 1,000 kind of acres of land, right? When they are not doing well, or they don't have any data sets or any formulas on hand, that will be a risk to them when they are going into 1,000 acres. That's why work with them, talk to them, and how to make a small plots, make it better. Then only we expand. That's why data is so important for people that looking for a growth, right? Yeah, this is what I can say.
Yeah, I might want to add just a little bit that I think it also goes both ways, Mr. Tan. Farmers also need to get to know the technology as well, what it's capable of. So I mean, it's not just us as an engineer, learning their sciences, but I think it's also important for the other part to understand the technological part as well.
Yeah,
so
agreed.
that will be easier for us to integrate. Then after that, and I think AI will become a product that will help future generation to do the agriculture easier. Just like Mrs. Tan said before, last time it's very hard, we need to learn everything. But once the system has become in place and more efficient, then the next generation can take it up faster and easier.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing the views. So just a small follow-up questions. What do you think of the technology penetration rate? Because you mentioned about this data-driven technology, and also Dr. Sam Susanna also mentioned about nowadays we have drones spraying the fertilizer and the pesticide on the field. So how do you regard the technology penetration rate in Malaysia with regard to food production, and also even up to the level of finished food product? Because I know that in overseas, there are researchers that they use a microwave, terahertz, to scan through the finished food product to detect if there's any rotten food product. So what do you think of our current level in Malaysia, the technology penetration rate?
Yeah. Compared to the last few years, when I was just entered into a smart farming industry, it was so tough. It was very tough. We were actually in level of educations on how these technologies that able to help them, right? Yeah, few years back, it was in an education's kind of stage, right? But slowly, I would say is that when we, when all the challenges that they can face, maybe social medias or whatever, they actually get all this knowledge on how these technologies that able to make their process faster, right? Then they are willing to invest. Nowadays, they are actually ask for the solutions, how the technologies can be helped, right? Even, I'm sorry, so come back to the durian again. So sorry on that, right? People's like, a food processing plant, right? When they are engaged the plantations, the farm owners, right? They are looking on technologies that maybe an AI machines or with the cameras that able to use that to differentiate the grade of the durian, right? Before they actually, because the current situation is that they are looking at the durians. Oh, this is grade A. Okay, just put aside. B here, C then rejected, right? So all these are just based on the human eyes, right? So when AI come into AI cameras that which is come into the pictures, then we can have a conveyor belt, then scanning through each and every single kind of durians, whether inside is there charging inside or not, all right? So we know all these things that how to actually to make this thing work. So they are now they are actually asked for technologies instead of what is this, it's a different level right now, right, compared to the few years back, right? Maybe I pass the phone.
Yeah, I agree with Mr. Tan about the penetrations. It also depends on the skill of the industries. If you are a large-scale producer, then you probably have bigger capital to invest into the technology. But if you are a small-scale, producer, then you probably have a very small margin to invest into developing or adopting the technology. So it's totally depend. But I agree with Mr. Tan that people has opened up their eyes to adopt the technology when they want to scale up. When you want to scale up your productions, you need to have an assistance. Like technology it can help, because after the pandemic, it's become more obvious to us that we couldn't rely on human labor anymore, especially if you look at into the oil palm industries in Malaysia. We are a shortage of labor, and they are totally desperate to rely on technology that is available to help them in managing the food production. So it's depend on the scale. And also, I think it has been facilitated by the infrastructure as well. If you can see now that Malaysians has been very digitally connected, then it will be easier for data-driven technology to be adopted, especially AI. But of course, again, when we talk about AI, we need to have a good, meaningful data set. But once the technology enabler is there, for example, IoT is there, is widely used, infrastructure is there, communication infrastructure, like we are now moving to 60 throughout the whole country. So once the infrastructure is there, this technology enabler will help in facilitating the penetration of the other technology for agriculture.
It's one technology add on to the other technology. So this is about the technology penetration level. But all this mechanization in the paddy field, automation in the durian plantations, these are the existing technology. What do you think of the research level? Like, what kind of research that we are doing in order to ensure a secure fruit production? What do you think of our research level? Maybe start from Mr. Tan. Start from Dr. Toby.
Okay, I think Malaysia has a very good R&D initiatives, not only from the agricultural industries, agricultural ministries, but also in education, science and technology, because we have been, if you all aware, we have this new Dasar Agro Makanan Negara that will help us to, push innovation in technological development for food security. So in research, there has been plenty and multiple, many research in utilizing the IR 4.0 technologies, especially AI, big data, blockchain, IoT, to be used to help and facilitate agricultural or food productions in Malaysia. So most of the research, like what I said, are data-driven kind of technology to foster more solutions, for local solution for our agricultural industry. So yeah.
From my industrial kind of experience for the research, for the small companies to do a research is kind of heavy, right? So usually what our practices is that, like what I mentioned before, we work with industrial experts. So our research is basically mainly on the applications level, right? The technologies is available, like what Professor Samsudana get all the research done, then I'm the one that actually applied it, right? So he's more towards the academia levels. So my side, it will be applications. How can I apply the technologies to make it a very so-called a very cost-effective or the economy ways of doing it, so that the farmers able to accept with a certain kind of investment. Thanks.
Thank you. I want to sidetrack a bit. Let's look at the government's perspective. What do you think of the government initiative or practices in ensuring food security in Malaysia? Maybe start from Dr. Samsudana.
So government have put many initiatives since 1980. Okay, before 1918, we were self-sufficient in food, but after 1980 onwards, as the industrial has divert towards urbanizations, towards electronics industries, agricultural industry has been left behind, and our self-sufficiency in food has reduced to about 60% at that time. And then government has introduced this national national agricultural policy 1.0, and then it became 2.0 and 3.0 until just recently. Then our self-sufficiency in food has increased to about 70% in 2018. And then the pandemic hit, and the self-sufficiency has dropped again to about 63% nowadays, today. Yeah? So government has quickly introduced new policy, which is the Dasar Agro Makanan Negara, which is focusing more on the technological adoptions, technological innovations in agriculture and food productions. Before, they were focusing more on the optimizing the production only, but now they are focusing more for us to be able to optimize the production. We need to also have technological innovations, as well as how do we sustain for sustainability for a long-term period of time. So that is the initiative from the government to help us in ensuring food security. That will make us to have the score of the, we have the index for food security index, the global food security index, which we don't have before. We were score 0 before, but after the Dasar Agro Makanan has been introduced in 2021, we received the score of 50%, which is average. And then today's we have the score of 70% of food security index, global food security index. So we are at 70% of self-sufficiency. But of course, in that index, there are few elements that been looking at. In terms of the sustainability, we are still low, below the average, which is around 40% only. So there's much has to be done to sustain our food production for long-term, sustainability.
Yeah. During my the time in the A to Z, I think MDEC, Malaysia's driven economies, that is actually doing a quite they actually done quite a good jobs on this, right? We have the product that managed to help the chilies farmers to actually improve their yield and consistency. They actually push all the way, right? In terms of providing the grant, right? So I think they actually promoting on all these technologies. I think, yeah, they done quite a good jobs on this. And the recent Malaysia's government also allocate some budgets for the smart farmings, right? I think it's about 10 millions for that, right? Yeah, I think we are moving towards that right directions, I would say.
It's good to hear that. So both of you mentioning about the government grants to encourage industry players in ensuring the food security and secure the supply, and also probably there are some research grants being offered. So maybe can the two of you elaborate more on, besides grants, any other incentives that the government give in order to encourage the industry players or even the academia to engage more in, for example, research or good practices to ensure the food security? Is there any other incentives?
Yeah. The reasons, even for the Jabatan Pertanian's Malaysia, they actually started to have all this, which is more towards the open tenders, right? How to apply the technologies. They actually mentions quite clear, as in technologies need to be applied in your farm, right? So that they actually can benefit from these technologies, and slowly towards the trying to reduce the labels, right? Reduce the usage of the fertilizers, right? So in terms of maybe some incentive, maybe still need to be improved further, I would say, maybe, right? It's not so clear at the moment for the industrial players, but it's more towards the farm owners, right? Or the operator itself, right? What about you?
I think I agree with Mr. Tan. There is no very clear incentive, but we see a few initiatives, like programs, like to encourage farmers to scale up their farm by giving bond or funding from the bank or the governments with a special interest rate. And then in research, Ministry of Science and Technology mostly also have offered funding for the SME, to put further their technological innovations for commercialization, working with the universities. So I think that kind of initiatives and programs also help in fostering the technology and incentive for food security. Yeah.
I see. What about in terms of enforcement? Is like, for example, if there is any food security issue, how do the government respond? Like, do they enforce any food security practices, like being very strict on whoever that violate any rules or regulations that they have set up? What do you think about the enforcement part of our government?
Okay, enforcement, I think there are two ways of enforcement. It's coming from the top and also coming from the down. Coming from the top, of course, when they form the, DASA or the policy, it's, catered towards the food security. So, when there are policy in place, then all the industry player and all the ecosystem will try to, adopt those policies that has been tabled out by the government. I can see also the enforcement coming also from the public, as for example, we have been hit by the COVID, and then when the issues there, and the all the people has starting to put their voice up front, then government start to listen and do something about it. We've seen there is some issues on chicken production, for example. So those are the dynamic, I think, environment in Malaysia where it's not only coming from the political side, it's also coming from the voices from the user or the consumer as well. So it is basically an indirect enforcement that government has to take into account to act upon. If you do not act, then you will have some consequences. So that's my answer for that.
Yeah, I agree on Prof on that. Yeah, for this is very depends, right? For this so-called it is kind of like hard to answer for these questions. So maybe right. Okay, I will maybe the next questions, please.
It's a challenging question. So just now, Dr. Sam Susanna mentioning about, sometimes this, if you want to see enforcement, then something has to come up from the bottom. It's not always, top down. So what do you think of the public awareness on food security? Like, are we, or Malaysians, or whoever who reside in Malaysia, are we very aware of food security? Are we very concerned? Like, do we always voice out our opinions about this food security? What do you think?
I think thanks to the digitalization, the new communication technology that we have, social media, when people see you eat, burger, different kind of burger, you want to try it. When people see people eating different kind of durians and you want to try it, so the knowledge transfer is becoming more easier nowadays. So I think food security awareness now have changes due to our changes of preference, environment, or also our diversifying of our populations. As people are diversify, you have a different preference. Yeah, long time ago, all people eat rice in Malaysia, but not necessarily today. Some prefer bread. So with that changes in people preference, food is indirectly, retaliate to the food security awareness as well, because they're trying to find, why Malaysia is so hard to get bread, and it go down into where it come from, So that, and thanks to the technology where we can get all the information very easily on the internet. So I think the penetration of the awareness now has become more easier than 20 years ago. Yeah.
I think Malaysia is considered as a lucky one, right? So I would say for the awareness, I think there's still a long journey to go for that, right? Because we are quite lucky and we don't have any, not a challenge one, yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah, I do agree that because of the availability of the internet, nowadays this kind of information is very accessible. It's like if you look at our students here who are sitting here, many of them are actually international students. So there are a lot of exchanges, cultural exchanges, and so on. So I really hope that this can promote the public awareness on the food security. Just a personal story, maybe not has much to do with this public awareness. Just over the weekend, I went to an Italian restaurant, and then they were playing this video, and it looks very interesting to me, because this video, they will invite 3 chefs, Italian chefs. I think it's an Italian program. 3 chefs sit in front of a computer, then they will click on they will watch most clicked videos on how to make Italian food. For example, pasta, or pizza, or aglio olio. So I think they will just click on the YouTube and watch the most clicked videos of that. And then they will comment on whether the chef on the video is doing it right. But this was commented by the Italian chefs on some most watched videos. So the most watched video, of course, not necessarily they are Italian. Most likely they are English speaking, and they are non-Italian, trying to make Italian food, and then the YouTube video gets very popular, so that it becomes the most clicked video. Now they invite 3 Italian judges, not actually judges, but they are chefs themselves, and then they will comment. They commented hardly on, give a very critical comment on, this is not the way of making the pizza, this shouldn't be the way of making the aglio olio, and so on. So it looks very interesting to me, but this is a level of a cultural exchange. Like nowadays, everyone knows what is a pizza, what is a pasta. But in terms of public awareness on the food security, I'm not so sure how much level we have actually up. It's just a personal opinion.
It's like Uncle Roger, right? the Uncle Roger's comment on how the Malaysians actually bring the rice cookers to UK.
So okay, on a different aspect. So just now I mentioned about the what the government should do, and then the enforcement part, and then whether the government is giving enough initiatives to the industry to promote the food security. But I think because of the globalization, we rely not only on the government, the local government. I think we need to have a global perspective. For example, now because of the Russian-Ukraine war, the wheat supply become a problem. So the flour supply become a problem. So actually, how should we or the government respond to these international changes or global changes? What do you think of this global impact on the food security in Malaysia? Also a tough question.
Probably I can start with highlighting some of the global issues that has impacting food security. It started with, probably I'll start with the pandemic, the COVID-19. We've seen how our food supply chain has been disrupted when, everybody closed borders and you couldn't transport, food. That's one example of global issues that has impacting food security. But luckily in Malaysia, we have enough resources, for circular economy. So I think that's one important thing. We need to be able to have our own industries, sustainable, not totally relying on outside. Okay, that's the first thing, the COVID. And then the second one was the Cold War between the United States and China. Even though we didn't see, war, but we can see the fluctuation of prices in many industries, and which also impacted in food. and food prices has become increasing. And after the Cold War, we have the Ukraine and Russia war, which directly impacted food because Russia is the main supplier for fertilizer, the number one supplier of fertilizer for agriculture in the world.
Yes.
And then Ukraine is produce 30% of grain for flour. So that has make the inflations in the food price. And then one more thing that I would like to add, the global issue is the climate change, where we all know in Malaysia in end of the year we are going to face flood, and that will be a huge impact on food security as well. I've have friends with many food producers. Their farm has been impacted by the flood, and it's a total loss. So that is one of the issues that I think government has to look into, to tackle the food security in Malaysia.
Yeah, I totally agree with Prof. Yeah, fertilizers is one thing that which is I think the war between the Ukraine and also the Russians. So from the farmers' perspective, they keep on worrying on the the fertilizers cost, right? It has been increased, I think almost 30% of the initial cost of it. I mean the cost before the war, right? So that is a highly impact their income. So that is why the technologies is how to reduce the usage of all these things, all right? Not only labels, reduce the label, but also on the fertilizers that able to control well on that, right? So like the if you talk about the accessibilities, right? That is importance that like for us sustainable houses, right? We're building quite a numbers of community farming, right? That is actually not only for the self-sustainability, because we build just beside the orphanage house, right? So these young fellas or the old folks can actually able to help on the harvesting and also on the planting process. So the whole journey is that we are trying to create the so-called maybe a small job opportunities, all right, for the youngsters, right? How to actually to cari makan just based on just besides their home, right? And it can, I think all these things that is the very maybe can be the reasons why we build so much of a community farming is that we want to do distribution centers, right? Let's say in maybe one of the buyers that would like to buy maybe 500 kgs kind of lettuce, right? We can't just get from maybe one one greenhouse. Maybe it can be from a different area. That's why the regional distribution center is so important, is that collect the different kind of veggies that then supplies to that. So that will be reduce the chances of have a problem on accessibilities on the whole things, right? So this is our current practice right now.
Thank you to both of you for sharing the views on this issue. I think whether it's a hot war or a cold war, it gives the same impact. It affects everyone on the globe. So that which is quite devastating. So okay, putting aside the government roles and all that, how should we respond to the changes, for example, changes in the market? Now everyone knows that the Chinese, they want to eat Musang King, so a lot of people start to plant Musang King and want to do the export. I'm not sure whether it's a good thing. It's good in the sense that I think people are making a huge profit from exporting durian to China. But what if they stop importing? So can we ask a durian expert?
Yeah. I like to eat durian too. So.
All right, good. Good to hear that. Okay, yeah, what you mentioned, yes, it's a risk, right? We are to rely on the export, but the recent news is that even the U.S. also start to accept the durian right now. So the export to the U.S. is actually increasing. So that is the best part of it. Really. You know, in a durian industry, right? I think for the Thailand, they actually export the most to the Thailand, to the China, right? So we are just maybe 2 to 3%, right? Right? You see, it's a very small percentage. If you're comparing, let's say maybe durian in Malaysia compared to Thailand, if those people that actually from China actually they try Musang King, they will definitely they will like it, really, if you compare to the Thailand, right? But of course there's a risk for that. If let's say one day they're going to stop this, but hopefully it's not going to be happen, right? But it should be diversified, right? We can't just rely on China. I know China is the huge market for the durian, but even in Malaysia, you know, we don't just rely on the whole fruits itself, right? The whole durian fruits, but in the long run, it should be maybe the durian pulp itself we can make into other things, right? For even now, like Chinese moon cake, you know, they use a Musang King as well. They use the paste for other purpose, for cookies, you know, even for the so-called Chinese mochi, you know, chendol, all these are coming up. So a lot of applications, you know. I think in a few years' time, right, there will be tons of durians going to be ready, right? Not too worry about these things about the export, but the local consume also very important on that. Okay, you know, nowadays for the Musang King, people I think in Malaysia they are willing to pay. They are willing to pay for the quality fruit. You know, not only food itself. You can go to a luxuries. You can see a lot of luxuries restaurant, right? They actually we can even the economy is that bad, but we can still see there are a lot of people. So it's trying to say that people willing to pay for food, you know, in Malaysia. This is my my point of view, I would say, right?
Yeah, I agree with you. People are willing to pay for food in Malaysia. But I also think that it is important for us to have some sort of formal regulations in, you know, controlling the export of our, you know, own produce, just like what we had for rice. You know, why do we still be well, our self-sufficient rate is quite high, 70%, because government control the rice. Government control the subsidy of the rice. Price of the rice is at the stockpile of the rice is being controlled. So that's why we still, you know, we're still lucky. But for other crops, I think any crops, even oil palm or durian, which is has a high value in the economic return, I think it's very important to have some strict regulations to ensure that we will not, you know, just export all the high quality products to outside and left the, you know, the not so high quality for the local consumer. I think government should play a better role in this, because it also will relate to the sustainability of the food production, because people will question how those food are being produced. Just like oil palm, just like our palm oil. I just came back from the Europe last month, and I've been questioned by the people in the Europe that they do not accept our palm oil because they claim that our palm oil was produced in not a sustainable way. Like, you know, cutting of the trees and the forests and everything. And I think this issue will go the same as durian. So if our government didn't pay attention on this, and even if we become the largest exporter of durian and become famous, and at that time, people will go dig and see how do you actually produce the durian. So from the beginning, I think it's very important for us to do right, to do the right way, you know, in producing our food, so that it will become sustainable in the long term. Yeah.
Very good answer.
Yeah, this is really the highlight of the forum today. Like, both of you have touched upon many issues on food security. You talk about affordability. You say that Malaysians are actually willing to spend, you know, a lot of money for good food, but the affordability of food is not so balanced over the world. A lot of people can't afford food nowadays because of the war and all that. So affordability is one thing, availability is another thing. Like, how do you ensure to have a constant supply of Musang King and not all sapu by the Chinese? So how do you ensure that? And Dr. Samsudana mentioned correctly that, you know, the government need to do something. It's just like you need to regulate the rice, set the price for the rice, whether you can export or you cannot export, how much you can export, how much you can import. So it's the same thing. I think we need to find ways to survive in nowadays world. It's just like we need to know how to survive during the Sino-US, Sino-American trade war. It affects our semiconductor industry, so, and many other things. So we need to find a way to survive. And I think government should work together with the public, private industries, government. We all need to work together to figure out a way to survive. So now we have the Ukrainian-Russian war. How do you survive? How do you get your supply of the fertilizer affordable? How do you get the supply of the flour and so on? So I think all these are like pending issues. We still need to work on it, because now the parliament has been dissolved. We are putting the hope on the next government, and we are the one who, you know, choose the government, right? So I think the point is that everyone needs to play a role. It's not only, you know, relying on the government, and then we need to play our role as well. So, and also about the fairness of the distribution of the food. It is of course unfair over the globe. You know, some countries don't get to eat. Some countries too wealthy, and then they just throw away the food, right? Not finishing the food. So that is an uneven situations that we should look into it and figure out a way how to resolve them. And also Dr. Samsudana mentioned about the control or the branding of the palm oil. Like now people are accusing you of using some inhumane practice to produce the palm oil. So they may use the same technique in talking about the durian export. So I think we need to have a long-term goal or long-term view on how to deal with this. Otherwise, the palm oil is a good oil, it's a good food oil, but now it has been given a bad name, and we need to do something about it. I mean, from the public, maybe academia, industry, and also the government, we need to work together to give back a good name to the palm oil. I don't think the world can survive without a palm oil. It's not only meant for food, it's used for many other things, cosmetics and all that. And palm oil is actually irreplaceable. So why they are putting such a bad name on palm oil? And we need to fight back with scientific proof, evidence that this is good, this is not harmful. And what is it with our the labor practice. Can we improve that? Can we improve the labor conditions? Are we burning too much in order to plant the oil palm? Is that true? So I think we need to relook into this. If there's any part that we haven't done enough, we should do it better. Don't you think so? Any comments on this?
Luckily, that in all palm industry we have MPOB and MPOC who play a major role in tackling all the issues that has been put up in internationally. So nowadays, not nowadays, as a few years ago, they have set up the Roundtable Sustainable Palm Oil, standard, so that they target to have all our palm oil production in Malaysia has been certified by that standard by the year supposed to be 2020, but now we are 2022. But yeah, they are working very hard to meet that standard, so that our reputations in our palm oil brand being protected by the international issues. So I think because palm oil was there in Malaysia's economy for a long time, so we have already structured in place. But I think for crops, new crops like durian, that also have a very good economic impact, need to follow suit to better protect our food production industry.
Yeah, unfortunately for durian, we don't have a community like for like a MPOB, no, we don't have. So hopefully, yeah, there will be something like this, so that you can have a standard practice to create some maybe SOP, and how can we go into internationally, right?
I think one policy that is all standard that can be adopted right away right now is the MyGap.
MyGap, yes,
the
yes.
good agricultural practices
Correct,
that has been there already since early 2000s for all farmers in Malaysia.
Yeah. That is more towards for the generals, right?
Yeah, hopefully we can get better, we can do better in this. Just now, Mr. Tan mentioned something very interesting, community farming. I think this is a sustainable practice, right? How do we do community farming to ensure that we have a constant food supply? So other than community farming, what do you think of other sustainable food security practices? Can you give more examples?
Okay. For this for community farming, just to rephrase a bit on this, right? For community farming, like for sustainable harvest, right? Our companies is building up quite a numbers in OUG, in Mont Kiara. So these are the places that we are focused on, right? We are not only on provide the solutions. It is important to actually to maximize the usage of the land, I would say. All right, this is one of the key words for that, right? Even for the durian plantations, right? There are workers which is actually staying in a farm itself, but they are looking for greenhouses, right? Because durian cannot be their food every day, right? So only the like a greenhouse, right? They want to maximize the usage of that, the land, right? That's why even for the durian plantations, they're building out a greenhouse to actually produce some vegetables for their own usage. That's one, right? Not only that, but some of the our client, which is from the factories, right? They have empty land, right? They want to have even a hydroponics or the aquaponics kind of setup, so that their workers is actually able to enjoy the vegetables and also the fishes, right? So this is I will say that maximize the usage of the land is one thing, right? So they can actually they don't have to be not all the time it should be empty there, right? Just make use of it.
So, okay, we have talked a lot about the food security. We talk about the affordability of food. We talk about the availability of the food, even fertilizer and so on. So, besides all this, what are the challenges that you foresee or you actually see now, challenges to our food security in Malaysia? This a very general questions. What are the challenges that we face in Malaysia with regard to food security?
Challenges of food security in Malaysia, because I'm working with the technological, adoption to increase the food productions. I think one of the challenges is the skill gap, the real understanding on the problem that we want to solve. We need to have more educational program to smaller the skill gap between the agricultural problems and also the technological problems. If you all know that farmers in Malaysia has become to an extinct, like all the first generation farmers are almost 65 years old today, and their second generations are taking place. So second generations of the farmers, mostly the son or the daughters of the farmers, they are not farmer. They go for the studies, and they are
Not interested.
they're not interested. So there is skill gap there. People don't know how to do the farming, and you have more. I think we don't have problem with technological, engineers, yeah.
Yes.
But the people who know exactly how to do the farming is become less and less. In fact, out of 1.5 million people in Malaysia who involve in agriculture, only 1.3 million who are actually doing agriculture. And then out of that 1.3 million, only 1.2 million is, all 1.2 million are males and the rest are females. So females are very less in doing the agriculture. They believe if female got involved more and know how to do the agriculture, then probably it will, help in our food production. But anyway, 1.2 million out of what is our total population in Malaysia? About 34 million, right? So it's very small. You want to feed, 30 million people, but only 1 million are working on it. So, and the technology and the skill gap are high. So this is the challenges, I think, that has been facing by our agricultural industry for so long.
Yeah. Not only that, but also like just to add in a bit on behavior to change, and thanks to the technology nowadays that make the youngsters feel interesting to actually to go into agriculture again, right? Before this, they don't want like maybe for youngsters nowadays they don't want to spend their time on like going to a ladang too much, right? So nowadays is that, okay, I got the technology and I know how my father actually planting. There's the benchmark and there's a formula on it. Then they apply the technologies, right, to actually into the become a modern farming, right? Yeah, that is the challenges that for them to actually to change the mindset, right? But when we apply the technologies, right, I think that the best practices is that to make it is as in those youngsters that maybe let's say for durian farming for small plots, they don't want to apply on all this because for them they feel that hey, I have been surviving. I don't have to be. I don't need to change. I already old, right? So to go into that area, I would say yeah, it's very challenging. But luckily is that the youngster, the son, right? Able to actually to get opinions, right, to their fathers, right? Nowadays there's these technologies that able to help them. So actually taking quite some times for that to change our behavior, right? They actually the problem is the reluctance to change, right, in a comfort zone, right? That is
Thank you. So I think just now both of you mentioned about the challenges that we face, especially on the skill gap and perhaps a generation gap even. And how do we actually can sustain the farming, all right? If the next generation is not willing to take over the farming job, then we will have a problem in the availability of the food. So I think the very last questions I'm going to ask both of you is, what do you foresee Malaysia in 10 years' time? In the next 10 years, do you see that the food security becomes an issue or remain as an issue, or any good changes that you foresee that can happen in the next 10 years?
Yeah. To me, 10 years time, I would say that everyone, or maybe every household, that able to achieve to grow their own vegetables, right? It should, the infrastructures or the maybe things like a simple hydroponics or aquaponics, it should be available in every single home, every single household, right? So as a provider, what you can do is actually, it's just like a gas tank, right? People just come and refill. So we can just supply like maybe a baby plant, right? You're just gonna wait. Maybe after 4 weeks, that is going to harvest. So all these things, it should be ready or available in 10 years time, and everyone should have a know-how how to grow it, right? Instead of just get a ready in the markets, right? So there is actually trying to teach us on self-sustain, right? It should be making into a very general, very popular, and available in every household. That is
in my opinion, 10 years time is long enough for us to start to adopt whatever we initiated today. Just like before 14 years ago, I did my PhD in agriculture engineering, where we use a lot of satellite data, census data, and nowadays I can see that it has been adopted in Malaysia. So it takes like about 10 years for government, for our environment in the local, community try to accept those concepts. So nowadays, whatever what we introduce today, for example, like in R&D, a lot of research has been trying to use AI to automate the machines. I can say the one is the closest one is the applications of the drones in the rice farm industry and also in oil palm industry. As I think it's in 5 years to come, it will start to being utilized, because right now they use drone but not totally intelligent. Humans still need to do the interventions. It's not totally intelligent, but it's already there. The infrastructure is there. The enabling technology is there. Okay, so in 5 to 10 years to come, I think the AI technology to make it fully autonomous, I think will not be impossible. It should be readily available for being taken up by the industries.
I think the point is that we need to take the first step. So we are where we are is because of the step that we have taken 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So now if we don't take the first step, then we won't be where we aim to be in the next 10 years, right? So just to summarize a bit on what we have discussed in this forum today, we touch a lot about technologies, but it's not merely about technologies, because even for technology, we may still have a skill gap, and then the adoptability of the technology in the public or among the farmers. And also we need to respond to international issues. It's like the panelists have mentioned that the world nowadays is very dynamic. So every day is there's a new thing. Then suddenly you find that the parliament is dissolved. So you need to respond to that. In order to respond to that, we need to stay focused. We need to do something about not only palm oil. We need to do something about durian. We need to do something about paddy field and all that. We need people to really pay attention to these issues and respond to it, rather than letting the global environment and then turn us around and then keep changing us. So I think we need to adapt, and we also need to adopt some good practices such as community farming and all that. Start going back to our house, our home, and then try to do some community farming. Maybe you need to take the first step. That's the message that I get from today's forum. Now, we are not at the end yet, so I would like to open up this forum session to Q&A. So we welcome any questions directed to the panelists here, not to me, because I'm not the food expert. So we open up to questions, maybe questions from the floor. Can the people watching the video also ask questions? I wonder. So maybe our audience here, the students, you can ask the questions. Grab the mic in front of you. The mics here and over there to ask questions if you would like to. Or anyone would like to, do research in food engineering, food processing and production engineering. Anyone would like to work in a, IoT farming company? This is a good chance to ask.
Yeah, we have some vacancy on that. Yeah. Anyone who interested to join us, right? Yeah, please go to our website. You can go to regatech.com.my, right? And even internship also we accept, right? So when it's the right time, then just send me.
Okay, good afternoon. Is it afternoon or still morning? Okay, firstly, thank you very much our panelists today, Mr. Tan and Prof. Sapuzana. Okay, I would like to ask one question. Besides knowledge on technology like IoT, AI, and so on, what are other skills that our engineers, like our students here, they need to acquire during their study time, so that later when they go out, they can contribute, better contribute to the society, maybe in this area, in smart farming, for example. Besides the knowledge on the technology, what are the other skills? Because technology on its own, maybe not enough, okay, not enough for students, because if they know technology but they don't have the skills to communicate, for example, with the farmers and so on, like what you said just now, the technology might be useless because they cannot be applied and so on. So maybe you can elaborate more or add more on the skills and maybe some other things that they need to know or need to acquire. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Besides the engineering, besides the technologies, I would say you must have some sort like a business mindset, right? When we design product and solutions to the clients, it must be a very business sound, right? You must be able to find out first thing first, of course, like what I mentioned on pain point gathering, right? And based on that, then only you design your solutions that able to actually to market it, right? When you do a marketing that time, you need to have the right channels, right? Even not only social media, but maybe you know, people's like influencers that actually can able to help on that. So technology is one thing, right? Technologies we can learn about the AI, the IoT, the blockchains, or about the cloud, right? So for example, the pain points can be, let's say, for plantations, they might not have a very clear or a very right planting models on the whole things. So for even for youngsters or new players that entering into the plantations, they are actually kind of challenged when they don't have all these things on hand. So as a students, maybe right now we can try to get ready some skills as in practice to learn about their process, to learn about their standard practice when you are going into agri-tech, when you're going to agriculture technologies. Okay, so for example, maybe another example which is, let's say for vertical farmings, you are in a controlled environment, you know, you are growing the lettuces. How to grow a good lettuces, right? You must have a sufficient CO2, right? Sufficient in, for the LED lightings, right? The fertilizers. So we need to choose in as in a right directions, as in smart farming is huge area, right? We can't just focus, maybe you're going out, you can't just tell people, your solutions can adopt to all these applications. So people might not be believes on that because you are not so focused. So focus is, we need to be like maybe until a crops level or a certain industrial level, right? So learn how to actually to get all this, maybe just focus on so-called the pain point, solving on based on the solutions, right? Thank you.
Thank you. I agree with Mr. Tan. I would like to add some of the values that I think our students should have. Is on the skill on the innovative design thinking. So if you have taken any design thinking courses, the first element of the design thinking is the empathy. So in the empathy element, you need to really understand what is the problem on the ground, with who are you dealing with, and how do you want to deal with the end user. So the empathy is very important. That's one thing. I think design thinking is very important for engineers. And then another knowledge that you need to have is if you want to solve a problem in agricultural problems, you need to have some sort of knowledge in agricultural sciences. So you need to know what's the sciences behind it when you try to create the sciences, what the sciences behind it when you try to create the technology to solve the agricultural problem. So you need to have that. Other than communication skill, of course, you need to interact with the end user, with the community, with the society. You need to have those skills to get the understanding. And one more thing, I think, for agricultural applications, you need to have passion. If you just doing it because you just want to do it, not because of your really passion, it's quite hard, it's difficult. Because agriculture, just like Mr. Tan said, it's a very huge industry. If you want to become an expert in durian, that doesn't mean you'll become expert in other agricultural products, because it's very unique. you're dealing with biological, thing, yeah, crops, animals like fish. There are biological things that are unique. So you need to be very specific on your expertise and go deep into that. Then you create a meaningful solution. So that's my answer for that.
Yeah, don't just apply it because the technology is available, right? It must be able to overcome some challenges. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. I think it mentioned about we need to have a business mindset. That means entrepreneurship. All right. If you do not want to do business, then I think it's also difficult to sustain. If you do not have a business mindset and innovation and design thinking, right? You need to think out of the box, and just not simply just or blindly follow the old practices. And sciences is also important, right? Nowadays we don't like sciences. The STEM program is doing very badly. So we actually need sciences. We need the scientific knowledge behind all these natural things, right? We're dealing with biological things, not a computer, right? Something that is alive and dynamically change. So we need to have that, and also communication skills, and most importantly, passion, right? We need to have passion. Without passion, I don't think we can do this. Thanks for the question. Thanks to Dr. Aslida. How about the students or other audience? Do you have any questions? Or to share your views? Any questions from the audience? Yes, Dr. Sin?
Yes. Okay. Thank you, the speaker and also the moderator. So actually, when I'm listening to the talk, then I created a lot of questions, and then after that, one by one, it's already been answered by the speakers already. So now I just left one maybe, because like when we go for the markets, we find that there's organic food which is more expensive than the conventional one. Okay. So how about the smart farming? Because smart farming, put aside the MCO, the cheap labor still will be more cost, less cost. Because when you come to applying the technology, you have a lot of sensor, you have of the system, then you need the electric bill for every month, then especially the maintenance fee. So this all is the cost. Let's compare with the labor cost for what our layman thinking is the labor cost will be cheaper. Then how come the smart farming actually can make it more cost effective than the conventional one? Because in our idea, it will be, because your technology definitely is very, very high maintenance, and then there's need a lot of the very advanced technology that is very, very expensive. So in this way, why actually smart farming that is actually can make the cost effective and save the cost and can let us to enjoy the cheaper food? Yeah, that's only my question.
Yeah, thanks for your questions. For smart farming, it doesn't mean to be expensive, right? That is why we are here to make to design as in a very cost-effective way, right? It has been very expensive if we import the solutions or the product from overseas. Yes, it is, right? Product from US, from Israel, they definitely very high. So as a Malaysian, I think we design in a very so-called a very a local kind of to overcome the challenges, right? Not only on the technology, but it's applied as in a very local way on it, right? People use their solutions maybe for their Apple for their blueberries kind of applications, but we design for the Malaysian food, right? It doesn't mean to be very expensive. Okay, why it should be applied is in, of course, the first thing first, very important is to have someone to actually to stand up. I want to be the first one who try this product, you know. They want to be the leaders for this. I think I'm quite grateful on I met this kind of people, right? They're willing to try. Whenever they try, and there are some followers that actually listens to these gurus, you know. Yes, I use this product, you know, I use these solutions, for example, fertigations kind of machines, right? It's actually managed to help them, to help him to actually to reduce, I mean the labor, you know. I know the labor is very, I mean, it's not expensive if it compares to other countries. But then, when we don't even have a laborers in our farm, right? The machines is actually need to be involved, right? For example, you don't have to put in the fertilizers and in a manual way. So when you have a technology, everything is auto, right? Of course, the first thing first is actually save the labor, right? Secondly, which is the technology, when it is applied, it must be able to increase the yield. So make use of the yield or the quality when you can sell even more and higher price maybe, right? That can actually to overcome the whole things, right? So yeah, some people that, they will feel, why don't I get more labors on that? But the problem is the labor, no labor, right? That is their challenge. So we can use these technologies to improve on the yield and also the so-called the qualities of it, right?
Yeah, I would like to echo Mr. Tan. Traditional farming is more economically, I mean, cost is, you know, lesser cost is only true when you can afford labor for the whole time. But that is not true. Especially after the pandemic, we have seen in farming industries in Malaysia, we couldn't rely on labor anymore because most of our workers returned back to their countries, many, especially in Indonesia. So when you couldn't rely on labor anymore, then that's where the technology comes in. I agree that the capital investment for the technology to help the food production is high, but I think it will be economical for a large scale type of, you know, farming activities. If you invest the technology just for 1 acreage of, you know, farm, that will be, you know, for you to get the return of your investment will be very long.
Yeah.
But for a large scale food productions, technology will become very, you know, cost attractive.
Yeah, exactly.
And when you do not, when you couldn't rely on labor, that's two things: scale and also labor.
I think we have to imagine a scenario where, what if there's no foreign workers? So we already experienced that once during a pandemic. So, okay, what if you don't even have labors? So I think we have to take this into account, right?
I think one thing why Western countries, they are very advanced in technological utilization in their farming, because they don't have labor, they don't have workers to do the job in their farm, and the only ways for them to be you know, cost efficient is to create a large farm so that their investment in the technology become economical. So that's why their farm are large and their technology are very advanced. That's the thing. But in Malaysia, I understand that our industries are, you know, are varied from smallholder to a large farm. But hopefully, as the technological, you know, infrastructure become more cheaper, for example, electronics. Long time ago, all of us couldn't afford to have smartphone, but now everybody can have smartphone. That shows that the electronics become cheaper and cheaper, and as the technology become cheaper, this technology become more affordable in the future. So I think we are going towards that direction.
Correct. And the hardware itself, the investment of the hardware, it shouldn't be a barrier toward the smart farming, because the most important, I think the ultimate goal is actually on the data itself. That's why it's data driven, right? Thank you.
Maybe one more question from the audience. Perhaps from a student.
Hello. Hi, good morning, the speakers and moderators, Mr. Tan and also Prof. Sarah. Actually, my name is Min. I'm actually one of the students here. I think I have two questions. So regarding the food security challenges, like you say, a lot of benefits about smart farming in Malaysia, right? So how about the implementation in the rural areas where the Wi-Fi might not be that accessible to the residents there? How are the rural farmers are going to implement, for example, the IoT inside their smart farming? So that would be the first question. And the second question is that, yeah, you all have shared a lot of things about smart farming tackling to the plants, but what about the animal side? Like, is it because for the plants it's easier to be implemented, so like you all are not implement much of the technology in the animal side yet? Yeah, so there will be two questions probably.
Yeah, maybe I answer the first questions. Thanks for your questions. Very good. Okay, so there's no Wi-Fi, right? There's no signals that for it go back to as a backhaul to go back to the cloud. Okay, the solutions. One of the solutions for that is that we are applying the LoRa one. That enables to actually to create a few kilometers kind of coverage, right? It's more like I believe you all know about LoRa, right? You can't use it for maybe for Facebook or for YouTube, but it's mainly for a small packet of data. But it managed to, like, even for a durian farm in a large scale, right? You can actually transmit in a few kilometers, right? As in a very small packet, like for the soil moisture, for soil ECs kind of data, right? But of course, in the long run, let's say in a bigger scale, the satellite images or the GIS need to be applied, right? That's very useful for oil palm, like maybe places like really a rural area, like maybe some Indonesia, which is having a few thousands of acres of land, right? There is for sure that no signal, right? So I believe for satellite images is one thing, but of course there will be chances to actually use a satellite signal to actually transmit all the data, but maybe once a day when it's collect and store inside the device, then it will only send once a day, right? Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. We have a few options on the communications network. LoRa one is one of the choices, and then also satellite communication is another choices. And I also agree that we need to have a data fusions, not relying only on one source of data, but we have to fuse it with a different type of data set for our application. So when you don't have the internet connection, probably you have to rely on satellite, just like when you use your mobile navigation. Yeah, when you don't have satellite, but you already have the unit in your phone, right, on the ground. So data fusions is another approach that we need to think about when we couldn't afford to rely on only one communication, especially communication technology. About the second questions, asking about the application of the smart farming, it's actually not only on crops, it's also applied to the animals. In fact, in animals, they have data-driven system for agri-food. It's also including, you know, animals like beef, fish, you know, aquaculture, especially in the farming where you can control the environment. So we have fish farming where you control the environment, like recirculating aquaculture system. So you have to control the environment, so that is where smart aquaculture system come in. In beef productions, they put sensors on the cows to monitor the health of the cows when they're grazing outside, outdoor or inside. When the car shows some behavior, you know, weird behavior, they can detect the status of the health of the cows, especially when the cows is producing milk. So, so it has been used for other food production industry as well. It just happened today we talk about a lot about crops.
Food.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Any other questions?
Hello. I have a question. I just want to hear your opinion. This might be a little out of topic. So technology become mature in the near future, and many things can be done automatic in farming, like watering, fertilizing, and harvesting. But will there be an issue of losing job opportunity? Will people start to think that AI will take over them?
Yeah, a very good questions, right? It's just like the, I would say, you know, Malaysia's government actually not encouraged to actually to sell the, you know, people use to use to bungkus the makanan, the polyform, right? Is it? Yeah. And these players, I mean, the business, I mean, the business owner, they change their mindset, then they have to do something else, right? But whenever there's, let's say if we apply in this mindset in agri-tech, right? When some business opportunities, I mean the job opportunity is no longer available, but it can be applied in others, right? For example, maybe, okay, some robotics that actually is taking over maybe some simple job, but this guy can actually focus on a different kind of things, like for example, maybe harvesting, or maybe he can go for a different kind of job skills that this robotics that cannot actually take over, right? So when the technologies, I mean, is here, right? But it create another opening job again for other tasks. I would say.
I totally agree with Mr. Tan. So if you read the risks of Industrial 4.0 evolutions, one of the risks is, you know, the losing of the job. But as the job being replaced by the automations, new job are created, because, you know, for you to be able to create the automation, you need to have an expert in there. And when we're talking about in agriculture, it's like what I mentioned before, only 1.5 million of total population of Malaysia involved in agriculture, and it's obviously not enough, you know. It's not enough, it's not being replaced. We need to accommodate whatever we have on top of it. So it's not the situation in Malaysia, in my opinion. Probably in other countries, Western countries, probably yeah, but in Malaysia, we actually doesn't have enough people involved in, so we need help. So when human couldn't help, then we need to have some sort of other mechanism to help the human. So I think totally replace the job opportunity. I do not agree, but it's actually created more opportunities. That's what I see. Yeah, thank you.
Agree.
In a reunion with my primary schoolmates, I met my former form teacher. So he asked me, what do I do? I say, I teach in a university. What do you teach? I teach engineering subjects. He thought about it and then he said, you guys no longer teach Chinese language in a university, right? I say, if I teach a Chinese language in Faculty of Engineering, I will lose my job. So I think we need to adapt to the situation, the changing situations. It's not a matter of whether I can teach a Chinese language or not, but I adapt. I have to teach engineering subjects in the Faculty of Engineering. So I think before the 1950s, 1960s, we don't have semiconductors, we don't have diodes, we don't have transistors. What we had was vacuum tubes. So what happened to the companies that manufacture the vacuum tubes? So it's a change of industry. The whole landscape has changed. And then we just adapt. We have AI. You create a AI industry, then you need people to do AI, to control AI. All right? You need different workers, different type of workers. So I think we just do things for a living. I teach for a living, and so I have to teach engineering subjects here. If I lose my job, I may teach Chinese language outside in a tuition center, but now I have to teach engineering subjects here. So I hope you get the point. So don't worry too much about losing jobs and all that. Any other questions?
Hello. Yeah. Yes, it's me again. Actually, this question is more directed to Mr. Tan. Because you are from a company where you sell technology or like IoT solution for the smart farming projects, right? So I'm just wondering, because like most of our students here actually know how to create like IoT for smart farming. We even have a project under FOE also. So I'm wondering, like, how do you keep your company competitive, where more people actually get the knowledge about how to manage a simple IoT project? So how do you keep your company actually competitive?
Very good questions. Yeah, it has become very popular. Even students also manage to do it, right? First thing first, some things that we design and to the market is that we need to be very industrial type, right? Make sure that the durability, right? Make sure that this thing is going to last for 10 years or 20 years, right? Even for the battery itself, right? The battery also we need to the current consumptions need to be in a very low micro amp, right? So that is one thing on the product side. Okay. Second thing, which is when we are providing solutions, IoT solutions to the market, right? We need to be very clear that who are our target market, right? Those that who is actually asking for maybe a very general belief that it's not going to be scalable, right? We need to have maybe understand his problem, right, and design specifically to achieve or to overcome that problem itself. Okay, so yeah, to us, right, even for my durian plantations, what is our advantage is that we are massively actually planting all the sensors to get the whole data sets for the Musang Kings and that, right? So that the AI can be applied, right? We are not just like just planting in sensors and get the dashboard, right? and showing the data. Important is that we create some things that which is able to be, reusable. Okay, when people come to us, right, I want to subscribe your planting model. That is the right words to be used in here. It's not just general IoT. I believe there are many countries that, or many companies that actually is doing that as in a very general kind of solutions. Okay, but we need to be very precisely. It's either the solutions itself or by a very crop based. You know, people's like maybe in the US, right, when they providing a solutions, they have the so-called their weather stations is not just measures the weather, your wind directions or the temperature and humidity, but they have the modeling that which is able to tell you what are the speed, the penyakit, things like that, to actually to tell you, right? They will predict it. They are selling this kind of model. So that is data is the value. It's not the hardware itself. Okay?
Yeah,
Thank you.
probably I also would like to ask Mr. Tan, do you agree that when you provide the technological solutions, for you to become competitive, you need to have a good services, after sales services, because this technology, you need maintenance. From what I've communicated with the users, especially farmers, when they use this technology, their main problem is the after sales services. When they got problem with the maintenance, some sensors only last for 6 months, and after that, you already have disconnected with the supplier, then they stop to continue using the technology. So I think we need to think about not only just providing the solution, but also the after services for long-term, utilization of the technology.
Yeah, that's why when I'm engaged with the clients, right, I always mention that we as a collaborator, industrial collaborator, so it's a continuously engagement. First, to get the data is the very first step. Sorry, we just don't end there. We will mention very clearly to our clients. So we will do, studies on data collections. How can the SOP can be improved? We will suggest, how all these things, the data that we get, or maybe it's the moisture level is too high, then we will suggest to the clients, the end users that, maybe what we can do is we don't irrigate that frequent. We can try another way, which is we wait until it touch the wilting point, then only we start irrigate again to the saturation point, then just wait for it to go down. So it become like we gather the informations, then we fine tune the SOP, right? Then we measure again. So it's a continuity, it's a before go into actions, right? We data collections, then we benchmark it, we studied it, then on actions, then continue again. It's a continuity kind of actions. Right, thank you.
Any last question? Any burning questions? Any final questions that you want to ask the panelists? Okay, I think it's almost time, so I'd like to thank the two panelists here, all right, for sharing with us your views on this issue. So I will pass back to Dr. Katrina.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fu, and thank you all panelists for an eye-opening discussion on how critical it is to start incorporating technology to increase food security in our nation. So let's give a round of applause for our panelists. Now, I would like to invite Dr. Siti Azlida, the chairman of the Industrial Linkage Committee, on stage to accompany Professor Engineer Dr. Hezarul to present the appreciation souvenirs to the panelists and to the moderator.